So I went back in time to the summer of 2024. And as we all sit here and wonder, what's next on this Chiefs deal? Where do the Royals end up? I went back to a piece of propaganda I found at scoopandscoreks.com. This was a lobbying effort by politicians and lobbyists, obviously, and the Chiefs and the Royals themselves to try to bring professional sports, more professional sports, to the state of Kansas. And I looked at some of the facts that they rolled out here in this piece on scoopandscoreks.com. And I wanted to go back and just kind of go down memory lane here a little bit with you and look at where we were and now 18 months later where we are, with, of course, the Chiefs getting set to move across the state line at the start of the 2031 season with this enormous deal they agreed to with the state of Kansas just a couple of weeks ago. And, this propaganda push had been going on for a long time. And we talked, on and off about it. We didn't know where this thing was going to land, but now we have details on it. And looking back on this major propaganda push, it's not surprising to me that the political class fell for it, but it goes to show you the people are smart. You are smarter than the politicians because you're asking questions. You're not falling for this. You're wondering, is this really as good of a deal as the people that are elected claim it is? Now, the answer is no. It's usually no. But this push has been going on for 18 months. So they have this big page at scoopandscoreks.com, and this goes back to the summer of 24. And it says, get the facts. Get the facts, Jack. Get the facts, they write here. They say it's a myth that the professional sports franchise star bond legislation imposes new and higher taxes on Kansans. They write here, the professional sports franchise star bond legislation does not impose any new or higher sales taxes on Kansas. Okay, that is true with a caveat, like is always the case. And I'll explain that here in a second. They write, star bonds simply harness the sales tax revenue generated from economic activity at the new stadium and the surrounding designated area, revenue that otherwise would not exist without the project. Yeah, that's a lie. We now have what is believed to be a 290 square mile star bond district. And they had the audacity to write 18 months ago that star bonds simply harness the sales tax revenue generated from economic activity at the new stadium and the surrounding designated area. Yeah, the surrounding designated area that now magically includes, all of Wyandotte County and what appears to be the western half of Johnson County. Because we all know 159th and Black Bob is definitely going to benefit from a new stadium in Wyandotte County or a practice facility at K10 in Ridgeview. I might have been born at night, but it wasn't last night, and neither were you. But this is the grift that this lobbying arm used to trick the political class, to convince the political class that they had to give away the farm to the Chiefs, who were never threatening to leave the Kansas City region anyway. They were blown away by what I think was surprising backlash on this over the last couple of weeks. Have you seen any of these Republicans who voted for this in the LCC running around the state talking about, we saved the Chiefs, we saved the... There's been a couple of posts on social media, but they have gone silent. If this was just the crown jewel of great heists on behalf of the taxpayer, on behalf of the people of not just Kansas, but the Kansas City region, don't you think these folks will be doing victory laps, Republicans and Democrats? Ask yourself why that's not happening. And it's not because they were too busy celebrating Christmas and New Year's. It's not. On this ScoopandScoreKS.com website, it writes here, Star bonds are the ultimate user pay model for financing infrastructure. Sales taxes generated within a defined district are utilized to retire the Star bond. Yeah, except it's not. Except 290 potential square miles is not a user pay model. What this means is that you will be diverting tax monies that otherwise would have gone to the state or the city to pay off stadiums and practice facilities. How are the cities and counties and states potentially, or the state, cities, counties, and state going to make up for what is lost revenue? How are they going to do it? Someone needs to ask Olathe, someone needs to ask Wyandotte County, and someone needs to ask the state of Kansas. And all these folks running for governor as well need to be answering that question. Because this is all economic development math. That's what it is. It's people with chambers of commerce. It's people in the Commerce Department statewide, oftentimes left-leaning folks, which really isn't the point because Republicans fell for this too, supposed conservatives, hook, line, and sinker. So it's really not a left or right issue. But ask them what they're going to be doing. And this leads me to a Channel 41 piece that was written here last night, and the headline was Star Bonds explained how Kansas plans to pay for new Chief Stadium and headquarters. And they note here, the city of Olathe and the unified government of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas, will decide whether to set aside their incremental city sales tax for the project. So first it was, hey, don't worry, it's just new revenues around the stadium that otherwise would have gone to the state that now is going to be used to pay off the bonds. Then we find out the district is nearly 300 square miles, which is a joke. That ain't a user tax to go watch a ball game. And now, and we told you this was going to happen 2 weeks ago, you've got the city of Olathe and the unified government deciding whether they are going to set aside incremental sales tax revenues for the project to help pay off, in Olathe's case, a potential practice facility, and in Wyandotte County's case, a stadium. So there's a drip, drip, drip going on here. Basically, all of Olathe would be in a TIF to help potentially pay off a training complex. That's what potentially could end up happening here. Because, yes, South Olathe is going to benefit tremendously from a practice facility on the border of Lenexa. That's what's potentially on the table here. And at this point, if you're the city of Olathe or the unified government, why would you set aside incremental sales tax revenues? Why? They said they're coming. Why would you give them more? I mean, they're supposedly coming. They love Olathe. They love Kansas. They love Wyandotte County. Why would you just give up more? Unless you have to. Because the math is questionable as best. Because they can't exclusively, through sales tax revenues generated by the state, even in a 300-mile blueprint, raise the money they need to pay off the bonds. That's why they magically suddenly might be asking the cities and the counties for money as well. Because even with this abuse of a Star Bond district, they can't pay off the nearly $3 billion they potentially need to pay off. No one will buy the bonds. So now the cities are potentially going to have to get involved. Why would the cities get involved? Why would they willingly give up future sales tax revenues to pay off these projects? Unless they have to make it work. Which, once again, is not how any of this was sold. It is turning into, it has been, but it's getting worse the more that comes out. It looks worse for the politicians in both political parties. It looks worse for the taxpayers by the day. And, you know, I've had people on Facebook, you know, say to me, oh, wait, we give it up. Really? Did I give up the Jackson County property tax issue? I mean, when the regular people are potentially on the verge of getting hosed and their political class has lied to them about it, I don't give it up. This isn't about sports. I'm a Chiefs fan. I go to games. I love going to games. If there's a new stadium in Wyandotte County, I'll go there. I don't care about the sports side of this. This is about the taxpayer getting hoodwinked by their political class and by the elites. That's what this story is. I'm not going to give it up because no one ever told me to give up any other tax story I talked about. But now because there's a sports element to it, and I guess Kansans feel like they won in some cases, Missourians feel like they lost. I don't care about that. It's a tax story. It's about the politicians not being transparent, not being forthright with their own people who elected them. That's what the story is.
It's like, hey, thanks for the free puppy. What is this?
Yeah.
This is Great Dane.
Yes.
Good luck feeding it.
Yes. Bingo. There you go. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. On the text line, Pete, I agree with you, but you do know that residents have a choice to leave the area. They're not forced to stay there. Okay, so let me get this straight. Regular people have to decide to leave their homes that they may otherwise like because their politicians sold out their neighborhood to billionaire sports owners. Do I have that right on the text line? I just want to make sure. I mean, you're right. I mean, people can choose to move, but once again, this was not a free market deal. This is not capitalism. This is crony capitalism. That's what this is. It's not like the Chiefs just said, we're going to Kansas because it's such a tax-friendly state. It's such a great place to do business. The offer's so good. We love the area. It was, no, here's $3 billion in future monies from the taxpayer to come to Kansas and then drive people out of their neighborhoods, potentially, if that's what you're saying. So it's not a free market deal at all. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Tammy. She's in Shawnee. What's up, Tammy?
Good morning, Pete. I have two issues that disturb me. One is, as a family, we always make a budget and live within our budget. You know, you live within your means. We don't have some endless bucket of money somewhere. We just live within our means. But yet the government entities seems to have this endless bucket of money somewhere. And guess what? We're the bucket. Taxpayers, we're the bucket.
Always the bucket.
They keep coming back. The other thing is the powers that be that made this decision, as the saying goes, they had champagne taste, all these fantastic things that this new stadium was going to have. But yet they don't realize nothing else has changed. We still have that same old beer pocketbook, probably Milwaukee's best.
There you go.
So, I don't know what else to say. I'm totally disgusted as a taxpayer and disappointed.
I am too. On the text line, as the sales taxes are diverted to the star bonds, the municipalities will need to find ways to fund their governments. Their only option is going to be through raising property taxes. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Wyandotte County's got one of the highest property tax rates in the entire state. They're also star bond heaven, supposedly. How is that possible? 913-408-7957. I'll get to more of your calls here on KCMO Talk Radio. Also on the text line, Missouri won big time here. We don't have to maintain them, and now we can go across the other side of state line while Kansas taxpayers foot the bill. That's right. It's exactly right. I talked to somebody last night just high up in the Missouri political food chain, and they were like, I think we made out pretty well here in all this. I said, I think you did. You absolutely did. All right. We'll get to your calls, and then we've got Lieutenant General Richard Newton at 8:05. He's a News Nation contributor. He'll join me to talk about what's going on with Greenland. Are we going to buy this thing? Are we going to take over this thing? What's going on? But more of your calls as well coming up next. All right, we'll get to your calls here this morning, 913-408-7957, as the drip, drip, drip continues on the Chiefs deal in Kansas. Now we've got Olathe and Wyandotte County considering using future sales tax monies to help out with the projects. Why? They're coming. Why give up more money? Why would you just willingly do that? Unless you have to, because once again, the state monies in the 300 square mile Star Bond District still is not enough for $2.8 billion. Kerry in Tonganoxie. What's up, Kerry?
Hi, Pete. This is absolutely the same thing that Brownback tried on us in with Tyson. Absolutely. They're going to give them tax breaks. They're going to give them handouts. And I'm in the district. I'm on the board for that district that would have oversaw Tyson. We learned about it the night before. I talked to a state representative about this very thing, and he was unaware that we were going to have to fork over money in 90 days if the Star bonds weren't made. So I think there was a big bill of goods sold to not only the taxpayers, but some, if not all, of the representatives in government.
Mm.
So
That's very possible.
He asked me where I found out about this, and I said, well, I found out from you. And I've been against it since day one. We don't want them here. I don't want to pay for them. If they can afford to pay their quarterback $500 million, they can certainly afford to build their own stadium.
Thank you, Kerry. I appreciate it, my man. Thank you. Let's go to John in Independence. Say, John.
Hey, Pete. Hey, the Star Bond deal here in Kansas reminds me of a recent deal on Lee Summit where on behalf of a large development they got building out there where there's going to be a new Costco and stuff. They asked the Hy-Vee store that was from about a mile away, they wanted them to move to the new tax district. So, of course, Hy-Vee brings in a lot of money. And so Hy-Vee didn't want to move. And so Lee Summit gerrymandered, if you will, the district to include the existing Hy-Vee that's about a mile away. Well, Hy-Vee sued Lee Summit. And then Lee Summit dropped the whole thing at that point. But it just kind of reminds me of that. It's just a dirty deal.
Yeah, well, that is a very interesting.
What I'm trying to say is they should sue. These businesses in Kansas should sue their municipalities for this.
Well, I'm not a legal expert. I won't pretend to be one. But here's what I'll say. You brought up an interesting point there, John. Someone in Kansas politics mentioned this to me, and it made all the sense in the world. They said one of the dirty ways they would sometimes make these Star Bond districts work is by including as many grocery stores as possible, because naturally the cost of food goes up every year no matter what, and they could divert that money to pay off some of these Star Bonds. But now the state doesn't have a food sales tax anymore, right? That got eliminated on January 1. So that actually creates a potential hole because they actually enjoyed having food stores in the Star Bond districts because you need food to live. It was an easy way to know that you had a baseline amount of revenue to pay off bonds within these districts by having more grocery stores in these districts. It's really fascinating. It really is. Can I squeeze in one more? All right. You okay with that, guys? I'm trying to not leave people hanging here. Patrick in Overland Park. What's up, man?
Yeah, some of these guys, they make some sense, but
no, they don't.
That's true. I mean, you can't sue anybody. That's what TIFs are built for. That's why every development company uses TIFs. Everybody uses them. All you do is add a sales tax, add it to the sales tax, and grocery stores still have to pay a sales tax in that city.
Yeah,
and that's where the money's coming from.
And I'm not like this, like Patrick Toohey, who's going to come up at 8:30 with the Show Me Institute. He's more of an, no TIF, no way, no how. I understand the idea of a TIF when it's appropriately and fairly used within some fairly defined district. That is not what this has turned into in Kansas. That's not what this is anymore. It's way beyond that.